Hey, what is up everybody, Blades for here, and today for you guys another video of Persona 5X. Inside today's video guys, we're going to be going ahead and doing a unit review for the girl Futaba, seeing that she is next in line for at least these type of series here. So if you guys are interested in this, be sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, really does help me out a lot. Now, when it comes down to Futaba here, this is the character that came right after Mesa, which was why there was a huge deal about at least skipping Mesa or pulling for Mesa at that point in time. She was entering the 2.3.1 update, and this is where we started to really see some new things coming into the game, and she was a huge talk. The main reasoning for this is because we finally had another offensive Navi besides of course Phoebe, and she was our first 5-star limited Navi. With this in mind, a lot of people had high hopes, and it was for the right reasonings. Seeing this character not only brought in some defense shreds, but the capability to actually change the opponent or have a weakness implant in the opponent as well. It was fairly interesting to actually see a character finally get this, and no one better to have this than freaking Futaba herself. That's mainly because we know her as the hacker, so you know, seeing something like this actually happen with her, or at least something like a kit like this happen with her, definitely was on people's radar. So now we had at least a brief description of her, let's go ahead and talk about her A0. Now, when it comes down with this character's A0 here, you very well can go for higher dupes, in which, as I recommended before we actually talk about the A0, the recommended dupe, at least that I feel like a lot of you guys want to go for, is the A1. That's mainly because it does allow her to give you 12% of crit rate whenever you have a 100% analysis progress, which is always going to end up happening anyways here, or whenever you do a hack complete. Now, these will be further explained once I get into the kit, so you guys can actually understand what that does mean here. But do understand, this is a character that quite literally, this dupe is probably the most worth for your buck. She does go into a majority of different teams here, so by having this one dupe, you're definitely going to help out any one of your at least other type DPSs here, as long as they do need some crit like aspects. So now we went over this, let's go ahead and go over the A0. Now with her A0 here, depending on at least her analysis progress, which is her Navi bar that you can see there, she can actually have at least gain 5% of this whenever of course we're able to use a skill that exploits a weakness or just causing damage. So pretty much if you're able to deal some damage, you're building up that Navi bar here, and it does make it come up a little bit quicker. And then she will also additionally have a 15% increase of analysis progress whenever a hack complete status is actually achieved. Now this is a fairly interesting one here, is because the hack, or at least the hack complete status here, is going to be us whenever we are trying to like what's it called, change her mode for the most part, or at least change the enemy. This is going to be something that when you really look at the hack complete, it's really just going to come down to, hey, we use the skill 3, which is the actual in name of the Featherman, and this allows you to change the enemy accordingly for this. Now also you get this hack complete status as long as you hit that analysis progress to 100. So you have two different ways of doing this. You can either use her skill 3, which does have the at least hack complete status, or you can go ahead and actually get up the analysis 100 bar, which you will get that up pretty quickly, and then you will be able to have that hack complete status. Heck, just by at least using her passive, which is going to be the playfulness passive, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but just by having that first passive itself, it does give you 100% of the analysis progress. So you are getting that hack complete immediately. So no matter what, you're able to at least proc this and be able to actually like make most use out of at least her A0. But it does further go on. After you do get this hack complete status, of course, you're actually able to boost your allies' damage increase by at least the level markers being from 10, 50, and 70 at level. You're getting yourself a 10% boost, 15% boost, or a 20% boost for 2 whole turns, which is really nice. You're getting that nice old offensive buff, which a lot of people really did need, and she luckily brought in her base kit. This was something that was a huge deal for a lot of people, and seeing that you didn't need any extra awarenesses or things like that to really get that extra offensive oomph that we were missing, it really made her a huge deal. Now, of course, if you want to be a little bit greedy with this character, I only recommend the A1, but if you were really about that life and you really just decided to wail on the character, of course the A6 is definitely worth it. makes it so you can actually give the skill 3 to all allies, meaning not only you're getting that hack complete status a lot quicker and for everyone in general, but it also is extended. So that's another thing, and you deal more weakness damage or overall damage as well. So that's actually really nice if you did manage to hit it. But now that we talked about that, let's go ahead and look at her skills here, in which when we're checking out her skills, there's going to be a few that we want to pay attention to first. All 3 of her skills are used to some extent, but the ones that we're going to be looking at least the most is going to be her skill 1 and her skill 3. The main reasoning for these 2 themselves is because in the skill 1, you're getting more of that defensive shred that we're really looking for. And this is going to be scaled off her attack. The more attack that she has, the more defense percentage is she's going to end up taking down, which is going to make things a lot easier. She does decrease the enemy's defense for at least 2 whole turns, so it's really helpful as well. And it allows you to actually really do a lot more damage. Though, if you do this as well and the enemy is weak to her, you actually are getting the weakness damage doubled as well. So you're getting a ton of damage off of this just by utilizing the skill 1. Now, as I did say, this is going to help you build up that analysis progress. And whenever you do this, of course, the hack complete status is going to happen. And that's going to give you that whole boost for everyone. So if you guys don't know exactly what the hack complete status really does do, it does increase your stats to some extent here, in which that goes in tandem with at least her other passive, which is cleanup, in which under hack complete status, it does allow all allies to receive a 30% of the Navi's attack as a shield. So she does have a little bit of a survivability mechanic as well inside of her kit. But that's not what we're talking about right now. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is the skill 3 in the name of the Featherman, which is really where you're going to be looking for. Reasoning for this is because this is how she does her weakness implant. Just they call it something called like a disruption virus. If you guys have played HSR, you know how of course we have Silver Wolf, who can make it so an enemy can be now weak to a certain attribute. This works somewhat the same, but a little bit different. So let me explain. With at least their weakness implant or disruption virus, pretty much a character or a mob, if they have null, repel, or absorb, it can actually change it to a resist. So pretty much it's going to be something different. So let's say the mob is at least now it's nullified to fire. Well then, once you use, of course, in the name of the Featherman, and you use it on the corresponding person that you want to buff here, which does make it weaker to that said element as well, by the way. So like whenever you do use this, an ally, depending on their attribute, let's take Joker, for example, a cursed attribute here, it will take down that said cursed attribute on the enemy, right? So let's say the enemy, they're null the curse. Well, once I used this hack little skill on my Joker, it now makes it so they can at least resist curse, right? They're no longer null, they're no longer able to repel, they're no longer able to absorb, they now just resist it. So you can now get at least some damage. Now, what if they already resisted in their curse unit? Well, once you go ahead and use this skill, you buff Joker, it now changes that resist to a normal. So now they actually have a normal status for at least time being to actually take some normal curse damage. And the same can be said if they're already normal. Well, if you use this and they're already a normal to curse, it then changes that normal attribute of that curse to now weakness. So as you can see how it's going down from the ladder, no repel absorb goes into resist. If they're already resist, they go into normal. If they're already normal, they go into weakness. And if they have already weakness, which is the big point here, you actually get increased weakness damage. So it kind of goes down and down the ladder, which can be really helpful, seeing that a lot of us, if we are trying to get the most out of our characters, we'll need that weakness implant that she actually does have. Disruption virus isn't as confusing as it may sound, but it is a little bit of a ladder process. So you do want to try and at least know how that does work. But alongside with in the name of the Featherman here, you are increasing that one ally that you're buffing here as well. And so you're not only just, of course, making it so the enemy can now have that weakness implant, but you're also making it so you're giving your at least ally a ton of attack so they can be ready for their onslaught of damage. This is really nice. It does last for only one turn, but it's still very helpful if you are looking for that. As for the buff itself, it lasts for 2 whole turns. Just the disruption virus lasts for 1 turn, so make the use of it. Now, that is the 2 that are the most important, of course, but then you of course have the second skill. Now, data crack is also useful to some extent. It does do a damage taken on at least one enemy, and it's very helpful for at least that 2-turn process. The only issue is you're only using this if it is a single target enemy, and if it's usually like a guild boss. Usually we don't use this too much. It's kind of very situational where you're going to utilize this skill too, so don't worry about it too often. You can just go ahead and have it there if you want to. Now we've explained everything for at least this character, so let's go ahead and go into her weapon and see if it's worth it. Now when it comes down to her weapon, in which I love the little what is it called, the little Easter egg. If you look at her computer, she actually is playing P5X. It's like very quick too. You kind of see her change it around. But with this at least weapon here, I would say it's highly worth getting. The main reason for at least this is because the amount of buffs it does pertain to her and how much it can actually affect her pit to an extent. Now, the reasoning for this is because you're getting yourself a 30% at least attack increase, which may not sound like much. At R0, especially for the 4-star weapon, it does have a 12% increase. If you can get it to the max, its actual increase is around 24%, and it does make the enemy do at least a 19 damage taken, which is all fine and dandy. At the end of the day, you can very well use this 4-star. It won't hurt you too much. But the reason why I feel like a lot of you guys might want to go for the 5-star is just pertaining to the weakness implant. As long as, of course, whenever you're using this weapon, not only are you getting this 30% attack, but you're also able to exploit the weakness and deal more damage for 2 lasting turns. So whenever your ally does exploit a weakness, it gives you even more damage for this, increases that said character's attack by 10%, and it does last for 2 whole turns, which is absolutely amazing. But the other good part about this is after the Navi debuffs, which Futaba does debuff, of course, with her skill 1, you're going to be using that all the time in your rotation. You're then able to at least boost up the crit damage of an enemy that's going to actually end up taking this. So now you have the crit rate side. If you went ahead and got the A1 for Futaba with the actual laptop, you then will have some crit damage as well that the enemy will now be forced to take 7.6% more of. This will last for 3 whole turns, and it can be stacked. So you're getting yourself around like 14 to 15% at least defense. Now, no, 14 to 15% crit damage taken, which is absolutely helpful as well. When at least you keep this in mind, it's going to be very interesting. So it's going to help you out, especially when it comes down to the rotation of how she does her skill 1 to skill 3, and really help you into that at least debuffing, getting buffs for your characters type deal. Though, of course, if you don't want to use this, be sure, of course, to just go for the 4-star. It really doesn't hurt her too much if you just decided to go for the 4-star. But if you definitely want the best for this character, consider getting the 5-star eventually. It is really, really worth it. But now that we went over the weapon here, let's go ahead and showcase her off inside of a battle. Now for Navis, it is going to be a little bit more difficult, seeing that, of course, they have to, what's it called? Get up their little amount of at least gauge here. So it does take things a little bit longer. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm just gonna, yeah, you know what? Let's just do something random here. Place this into the team and see what happens. But the whole point is you got to wait a certain amount of turns and a certain amount of things to go ahead and actually utilize our actual Futaba. So for example, we have 4 whole turns. So let's just go ahead and just smack her up a little bit here. See what happens. Hopefully we don't kill anything, because that's the main deal. So I'm just gonna use this because why not? Get the hit off here, and then passionate sing. Why not? Because we're not really trying to showcase a whole team. If anything, we're mainly just trying to get to show off one of our moves for the most part. So I think I'm gonna use Ominous Omen, and now we have her first time that she'll appear real quick. So how she comes up, you go ahead and press the little navigator button, and then it pops up with this menu. Now the one that you're going to use the most is her skill 1 with her skill 3, but we have to wait 8 turns, and we want to have, of course, all the things needed for this. So you would usually just use this one first. She does this little move here, and it chomps on down, giving them a defense down as well as crit damage taken up. Nothing too crazy, nothing too insane, but it still looks pretty darn cool. So we're gonna go ahead and do the second skill, this next one, in which I think I'm just gonna go ahead and just click through it really quick, just because I won't even lie to you. I want to say showcasing the Navis are probably the most difficult part of this, mainly just because it does take some time to actually, you know, showcase how they go and everything of that nature. But oh, well, that's not what I meant to do. I accidentally killed them. I didn't think they would die from that, but my B, I guess it killed them in time, so that was not on purpose, my dear friend. But we're going to take this hit here and we're going to be able to showcase the other attack as well. So the other attack is going to be this one, which is the single target one. And then for us to actually pop off the skill 3, we're going to actually have to stall a little bit next time. So as you can see, we put the skill 2 on there. He gets crit damage taken up, which is not too bad as well as in there is anyways. So we're going to go ahead and go back in here. And this time we're not just going to attack at all, because if we do attack, it's going to kill too soon, and then we won't be able to at least showcase what we need to showcase here. Now, I did say the skill 3 is going to be your weakness implant, so you're going to get to see that as well, in which I'll show you their attribute down of what they're actually weak to and what they're not weak to, so then you guys can get a better understanding of what's really happening here. So let's see what we have. Go ahead and pop this. You have to use the skill 1 first, so go ahead and use our skill 1. Lower this on down here, and now we have to build back up that gauge. So at this point in time, I think we actually are forced kind of to attack anyways, so go ahead and get the attack off. I don't really have any real attacking moves for this, so let's go ahead and use this, and then this as well. That should kill. All right, cool. All right, now as you guys can see, before we go ahead and summon here, they are actually null to everything. Not null, sorry, normal to everything, with at least a resistance to at least electricity. At this moment in time, the only one who is actually weak to something is this one right here, who is weak to psi. But we're going to be at least boosting our Joker, so they're normal to at least curse right now. So once we go ahead and boost our Joker, which you guys are going to see in a second, I'm gonna go ahead and use this move right here, pop this on off, and this gives us the buff that we need. So this comes on down, buffs us, and then it does something to them. What this pretty much does is immediately makes them weak to at least the cursed effect, seeing they were normal to it beforehand. So now instead of them just not being, or at least weak to curse, they are now weak to curse for that whole turn. If you had a 6, you technically can make them weaker to all the attributes in your party, because you're technically buffing everyone in your party, if I'm correct. So it's like whoever's in your party, they can be weaker to those attributes, but at A1 you can only do that one at a time, so do keep that in mind. But all in all, pretty interesting character. Futaba's still really top of the like charts when it does come down to characters who's really good to invest in, and overall is a worth it type character. Other than her, of course, Phoebe, her, and Ange are probably the triple threat for the Navis, and they're going to be the ones that you are going to cycle through the most. So missing them is not I would say, not a wise choice. If anything, try to pull all 3 of them, because you will need them for different situations. But with that, at least end of the video type deal here. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. Until next time, everybody, peace out.